You're listening to the Superpower Up podcast with your superpower experts. This is the place where we explore real-life superpowers and give you the tools to unlock your own.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Recla, your superpower expert, and I have a delightful woman on today's show with us. I am really, really excited. Dr. Anastasia Chopelas is the epitome of everything that we stand for at Superpower Experts. This really amazing blend of gifts and abilities and experience and perseverance and education and all of this wonderfulness. Walking her walk, talking her talk, and really truly embodying, the essence of what she is here to contribute to the world. And it feels like this, she's a true superwoman. She could probably do it all. And she channels that in some really awesome ways. So we're going to talk today about change this world through global health. This is her focus. And she has some amazing ideas about how that can happen. She wrote her book, The Diamond Healing Method, Get Healthy No Matter What Your Doctor Says. So that gives you a little bit of a hint about where she's coming from on here. But she's also a fourth generation healer and just a fantastic blend of uniqueness and strength and courage in doing everything that she's doing. So without further ado, I really want to welcome her to the show so we can dive right into just the amazing wisdom that she holds. So welcome, Anastasia, to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here and talk to your audience about what my mission is.
Well, and it's such a powerful, powerful mission. But before we jump into that, we like to ask everybody, what are your superpowers?
Well, I think my main superpower, and I've always been able to do this, is I can see into people and their energy, the way it flows, and I can pick out where people are sick, and then I can shift the energy to help them get well. And I even remember when I was very young, people would come to me and say, I think I'm getting sick, and I'd tell them, no, you're not, and then they wouldn't.
I love it. That's perfect.
And it happened over and over again. And now I've developed that into a series of actually very creative protocols that work with science. And because that's my other background. So I've blended this science and woo-woo together to create a unique set of protocols to help people.
Well, and I think that's so necessary. I mean, we're seeing now the evolution across genres is really that integrative approach. And the pattern that I see is a lot of folks really rooted in very practical arenas and merging that in with some of the spiritual woo-woo kind of light work or healing type spaces. And it's creating a phenomenal approach in so many arenas. And I think the healing, medical, health kind of arena is so it's so needed there. And I love that you would tell people that they're not getting sick. That's really how I transmuted that for myself is I just kind of staked a claim and said, oh yeah, I forget, I don't get sick. So every time like symptoms wanted to start to appear or I wanted to see them, I would say, oh, I forget, I don't get sick anymore. And they just wouldn't. And it really took a lot of like, I tell people you have to be willing to stare something in the face and deny its existence. And so anyway, that's what that reminded me of. So talk just a little bit about this really rooted practical background that you have.
Well, I decided when I was 7, yes, it was that early. I decided when I was 7, I was going to become a scientist. And the two things that fascinated me the most were minerals and the universe. And so I blended that into a career in geophysics, where I would study vibrations of materials. So I was in vibrations for a long time, studied vibrations of materials, and I would be able to tell a whole lot about their thermodynamics, their, exactly what was happening, all of the properties of the materials, and then you can model the Earth and other planets, and you can talk about how things got started and what's going on inside. And so at about 25 years ago, right around when I was turning 40, I got very sick. And I was so deeply involved in this science, and it came to a stop, and I had to take a really good look at why I was getting sick. And it turned out to be a lot of stress because I was doing all the right things. I ate a good diet, I exercised, I got sleep, I was doing something that I really loved, and I had to blend. I started reading a lot of medical journals, and then I was living in Germany at the time, where alternative medicine is far ahead of where we were in the United States at that time. So I started really diving deep into it, and I got involved with a bunch of energy healers in a self-help group I was in, and I learned about reflexology and shiatsu massage and Reiki, and I started taking Reiki classes and became a master right away because I could move so much energy that I was changing things. And since then, everything has evolved. So I just decided that I needed to combine both things so I could read the medical journals, because I was in research. I've got 50 publications and book chapters out there. And in scholarly journals, the ones that are really difficult, peer-reviewed journals. And I took that kind of ability to be able to read the research and say, well, I can turn that into an energetic protocol. So I started doing that. And that's when real big miracles started happening.
That's so awesome. So tell us about some of these miracles that you started participating in.
Well, the first real big one was my parents came to me and told me that somebody I've known since he was a child was in the hospital in a coma. And at that point, he was in his 50s, and he had been in a bad car accident where he was T-boned by a truck while he was on a bicycle. So he had a serious brain injury and a broken arm and a broken leg, and it was laying in a coma. And both my parents said to me, well, is there anything you can do as a healer? And I thought, oh my God, what a responsibility to have somebody's life. I'm holding this life in the balance. And then I just let that all go and went into the hospital when he was laying there and started to work on him. And I did about 2 hours of healing in the hospital. And then I did 5 more hours later, working especially on the brain. And I was cleaning up all of the other stuff, all of the DNA, all of the past life, all of the familial issues. I was cleaning up all those energy issues because I felt like they were causing him to want to let go. Like, this life is too crappy. I don't want to be here. And he woke up 3 weeks later, and the doctors had told both of his parents that he was going to die, that there were, just to say your prayers and say goodbye to him. And that was 6 years ago, 5 to 6 years ago. And he's still doing really well. He woke up better than ever. Like, his mom was totally surprised that they now have a really great relationship with one another, where before it was difficult. It was a lot of confrontation and a lot of not being able to deal with one another. So that was the first real big miracle. And then there were a series of small ones where people would say, I have this blood chemistry problem, or I have this immune system problem, and I have to take a lot of antibiotics. And those people were start changing around. And one guy who said, I have kidney disease, and my mom died at the same age I am now of it, and I'm going to have to either get a kidney transplant or go on dialysis. And I worked with him, and about a month or two later, his kidney functionality went from 20 to 40%, and now it's hovering somewhere around 50%. And he still works with me a half an hour a month because it's worth it to him to just have somebody, watch over and take care of him energetically. So these are just a small smattering. I've had tumors disappear overnight. I've had cancer shrink away. I've had like a whole series of really amazing things happen. And when those things started happening, I thought, I better keep doing this and teach other people what I'm doing. So because I'm a scientist, I can systematize it. So now I have an approach, like when I first approach a client or I first approach somebody, I do like this basic reading on them. And a lot of energy workers, they just go and they take one look and then they say, oh, this is happening. But I kind of dig deeper, I do 19 parameters. I dig deeper and deeper. So it's not just what you're seeing at the moment. And so that has allowed me to teach it and to work with people, to also teach them while I'm healing them, to teach them what to do to prevent it from coming back, to prevent reinfecting yourself. Because if you keep all of the things going the same way you were before, you're going to keep getting the same result.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, this is all super fascinating. I know everybody has a ton of questions. So we're going to take a quick break. And we've been talking about Change This World Through Global Health with Dr. Anastasia Chopelas. And we're going to come back after the break. And we're going to dive into some of this idea. As you can tell, that she's a wealth of information. So I'm really excited to expand on some of this and talk about what we're seeing from an evolution perspective for the world. So stick with us and we'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/the-net to learn more.
Awesome. We're back. You're listening to the Superpower Up podcast, and we're talking about how to change this world through global health. Anastasia, I have 1,000 questions, but for the sake of a single interview, let's look at this from the perspective of the global health situation. So you had made the comment that at the time that you were living in Germany, they were ahead of us with regard to the alternative medicine kind of perspective, and then you talked about these amazing, miraculous things. My first question is it your belief that we all have the power to heal ourselves?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Okay, and then so given that, and I, that's my belief as well. Given that, how do we really truly start to affect change and embed that perspective and empower people? Not necessarily always on their own, but at least to explore concepts of healing versus managing symptoms or, some of the other approaches that we hear about.
Well, even a lot of, I just want to preface it with this, even a lot of the alternative types of medicine, like if you go to a homeopath, all they do is they look at your symptoms and they give you these different different kinds of homeopathic medicine, homeopathic herbs, tinctures, and so on. And so it's still in the same realm of managing your symptoms. You just keep going back and they hand you like 5 new bottles or 5 new things. Okay, now you've progressed to this. And there never seems to be an end to that. And that's not what I'm about here. What I'm about here is pulling things out from the root of the problem. And for the most part, I'd say 95, just from my experience, 95% of what we have is kind of rooted in the life that you're living right now, from conception forward, whether you absorbed it from your family, your mother in the womb, whatever, and then your early life experiences. We don't process those things out. So now we have these things that are sitting in there and they're creating an energetic issue for us. And the way our body responds is to survive. So whatever the thing that's sitting in there, your body will try to move around it. And what it does is, in the short term, it's stress, and in the long term, it can be some sort of illness like cancer, for example. And cancer is also a response to toxins. So these kinds of things are sitting there, and what the whole idea is to remove the root of the problem rather than to keep treating the symptoms over and over again by some technique. And I think that just from my experience, when I'm doing that, as I work with people, I'm talking to them the whole time. Like they're saying, how can you move my energy while you're talking to me? But the whole purpose of the talking is to tell them a story or tell them something they can relate to, or give them a tip on how to not, how to get out of that situation, to change things. And my way of impacting global health is I'm primarily a teacher. So I now have done a lot of, and I'm still doing these, I do a set of videos and then I drip them out one at a time, and to allow people to see that there's a different way of thinking about things. So that's one, education. Another is teaching other healers what I do, my techniques, to help change things rather than doing it some way that they've been doing it, but teaching them some of my techniques. And the third way is to work with leaders and, heads of companies and so on, because it's the trickle-down effect. One person that's operating at a high level, what I call at a high frequency, and this is all scientifically proven, that when you measure the frequency of a person that is healthy, you have a much higher, they operate at, much higher frequency. You can measure the frequency in megahertz. So somebody healthy will operate at somewhere between 70 and 80 megahertz, somebody with cancer at 40, and somebody in the midst of dying at 20. So when more people are operating at this high level, they radiate out this high frequency vibration, or this wave outward, and it affects everybody around them. So one person vibrating at a high level can affect others. Just like I mentioned, when people would come and tell me they were getting sick and I was a teenager, and I'd turn around and I'd say, no, you're not getting sick. And then they wouldn't. So my thinking at that time, and I've been thinking the same way, I've been kind of mindful since I was a kid, and nobody taught me that. I just seemed to be that way. And that I would radiate out this good thing, and people that lived with me, they always got healthier, they got better grades in school, they earned better at work, they just seemed to do this. And so if we can get more people vibrating at higher levels, then we can really change things. So working with influencers, working with healers, and just putting the word out. Those are my three paths of doing it at the moment.
It's so fascinating listening to you talk about this from the kind of scientific perspective. When I got started on this trajectory, it was all very surprising to me, at least consciously surprising to me. And that's the exact information that I kept hearing, to the extent that when we developed Superpower Experts, the goal was to help people master their personal power and then kind of move them into harnessing their superpowers. And the step that was missing in that was the attunement process. And there was this kind of thing that kept popping up with clients and with a lot of our members, which was like, okay, they've got this, the conscious wise, they're all clear. But then there was this thing that was happening, and I kept seeing it as like, I call it sonar, it's like this pulse thing that emits off of us. And, I can't back that up scientifically. I don't have mechanisms or things to measure it, but I could see it, I could feel it, and I could sense what it was doing, what it was creating, and how it kind of impacted things. And that's when we added in a middle step, which I just heard, in attuning your individual resonance and helping people recognize that there is a frequency and that we operate in certain frequencies. And there's a number of factors that go into dictating what frequency we're going to operate in. And so I really appreciate that, the perspective and the overlay that you have on it, because it was something that I saw and sensed, but don't have the research to back that up. And other than the practical, the years of doing this.
Yeah, that's what I used to do. Is I used to calculate, I'd add up all the vibrations in a material and give you its characteristic frequency, which is kind of like, if you just took that one frequency, you could determine all of its properties. And I view humans much the same way. We have a whole set of vibrations going on in the body. There's not just one single one. But if you fold it back down onto itself and you turn into one characteristic frequency. That's what's being read from you. So when you have one happy, really powerful person walk into the room, it can change the whole atmosphere in the room. Or if you have one, really angry person, like people feel the wave as you come in, as they come in the room. And that is a mechanism that everybody understands. But from a scientific perspective, it's like, we have these antennae and we pick all of that up. We're reading off of one another all the time.
It's so awesome. It really is fun listening to you talk like that. And that I say that often, people, that we read energy first, like that, and then we go and look at the body and the words, and we used to teach congruency to counterintelligence agents. My husband and I met teaching at the counterintelligence special agent course, and those were concepts that we taught them because it dictates how you're able to do your job. How you're able to gather intel, how much you're flavoring the situation with your own whatnot. If you're not in some level of awareness of that it has an impact. And what we were seeing was that it actually was prohibiting people from being effective. And, we were teaching stereotypes and biases and all these other things, but that energetic piece kind of started to work its way in there, and it became very effective. And so it's fascinating. I'm curious, when you like, what was the purpose, going back, because I'm fascinated with your work, what was the original premise for why you were gauging frequency of material?
Well, first of all, it always was fascinating to me that you could shine a laser light on a material and it would reveal all its secrets. It's an inelastic scattering. So inelastic means that that the light comes off at a different frequency that one in, and that difference between those two frequencies will tell you what's going on in the material.
Perfect.
So it was always really fascinating to me. And then it was also fascinating that you could read, like if you run a sound wave through a material, you could actually read through this light modulation. You could read exactly what was going to happen. And, there's that. And we know most of our information of the inner earth all through sound waves. So knowing sound waves. And we now know the structure of the earth. It's in layers. We have a stony layer and a liquid layer, and then a solid core that's metal and at a very high pressure. So there was that. But then as I started to look at all the possibilities of, now we can get that information out. Now we can calculate what phases are down there. We can calculate what temperatures are down there. And it matches everything that we know, it forms a consistent picture. So for me, it was always about the vibrations. And now I read people vibrations. Just a small sidestep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's funny because, like I said, I've been doing that work, and it was just guided, and I didn't have the scientific background to kind of back it up, but I had the empirical evidence. I knew what was happening, and of course my own journey, what I was seeing with clients and whatnot. So I think that's. I just think it's fascinating. The other question I had for you was with regard to. One, do we have the technology to do that with the human bodies?
What do you mean technology?
Passing the light through it or passing the sound through. Can we use that technology to really, as a mechanism to read frequency coming off the human body?
Well, I think we have it all innately within us, and that our emotions and our thoughts, like when I talk with people on the phone, if I focus for just a second, I'll start to get images coming in, and the images are completely relevant. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was talking with my sister, who also has similar skills to me. She's just not as educated on how to use them. But she wrote me a text and said, I don't know why I've gotten sick and I can't, I'm doing all the right things. So why am I still sick? So I got on the phone with her, and the first image I got was this big giant inner tube from a truck completely deflated. And there's a lot of history to that story, but that was what her vibration was sending to me. And the truck represented, she used to own a camp and the Forest Service took it over from her. And she was very disappointed about it. And the air was completely out, like the wind was completely out of her sails, and it completely represented exactly what was going on with her.
Beautiful.
Right. So I get that with a lot of people. When I just sit and they ask me a question, I say, okay, just wait a second. And then the image will pop in and it'll be exactly relevant to them.
Well, and that's the technique for a lot of people. What I love about you is that you also have this other framework to that education piece, that experience piece to overlay it with, which in my opinion is extremely powerful. It was interesting that you were talking about when people enter a room, and I had a vision a few years back of really cautioning people about the phrase that came to me was energetic manipulation. And we do talk about that at Superpower Experts as a superpower because it has different nuances, but from that information came the concept that we are either manipulating an environment or being manipulated by it in every situation. And sometimes, in rare occasions, there's like the matching up, and there's this kind of harmony that happens in frequencies between us and the environment. But for the most part, there's always influence occurring. And so that concept has really fascinated me. And when it first came online, I had to sit with it because we don't like manipulation. It's like the word itself is kind of icky to a lot of us, and we have connotations in the collective conscious about it. And it's, but I think when we're talking about frequencies and vibrations and how we all interact as particles and waves and everything else, that there's this kind of undeniable element of manipulation. Is that similar to what you perceive?
Well, I would rather call it influence rather than manipulation. And the thing is that the people that do manipulate for their own purposes, they will eventually lower their frequency because it's out of integrity, right? It's just not an integrous thing to do. But we are designed to interact. All of our energy systems are designed to interact, either near distance or far distance. We have cording for far distance. We have our energy fields that expand in and out for near distance. So if you were standing 5 feet from me, we would be exchanging a lot of tacit information back and forth. So the whole idea is that we are designed to interact. We're designed to be social beings, in every way. And the other thing that happens is that we have strands or lines of energy that are moving in different dimensions too. So we are living in a multidimensional universe, and other dimensions have no time, no space. That's what's happening beyond the edges of the universe. There's no time, no space out there. It's just there. And we intersect with all of that. We have every object that's in the physical universe has lines of energy that goes into all these dimensions. So we're a lot more complicated, and we're a lot more interactive than you could possibly imagine. And because I've studied quantum physics for basically my whole life, and because I've studied quantum physics, and I'm privy to a lot of the theories in detail of what this multidimensional universe could possibly look like, that I have a better concept, but it still bends my mind, even though I've studied it for so long. But yeah, so we are designed to interact, and its influence, and the higher frequency that you have, the less influenceable you are, but the more influence you can exert. And the good thing is that the higher frequency you are is that you have more integrity, you care more for people, you care less for yourself. Not that you don't care for yourself, but in other words, the universe matters to you, like the universe matters to me, like it matters to me what's happening on the earth, right? It matters. And if you're low energy, you're shrunken in on yourself. That's the place where you're functioning at anger and jealousy and shame and guilt. You're focusing in on yourself rather than focusing in on you and your environment, like it matters to you. And so fortunately, one high energy person can influence like a whole country. So fortunately, and I call
absolutely.
rather than manipulation. Like, you can be manipulated, and I think we're getting more and more immune to that. There's no more the nighttime infomercial, but wait, there's more. We've heard so much of it that we're just immune to it, most of us.
Right. And there's two elements in that. And then we have seen, in our lingo, we talk about how, a lot of these superpowers don't come online in pure effectiveness and consistency until you commit to using them for good. And that's similar to not just being in high frequency, but being able to maintain that high frequency. And that's a big part of the work we do, holding the change agents accountable to the frequency that they want to operate in versus being kind of consumed by the influence of lower frequency environments, especially when they go back out in the world and do their work. It's one thing to climb up your mountain and kind of sit there, but when you're here to have an impact on the world and you need to be in the world to be doing that, it is easier to be susceptible, I think, to some of that influence. And so we help people stay in, maintain and embody those frequencies for longer stretches of time. So I love everything that you're talking about. It's very much in alignment with the work we do here. I know everybody's fascinated with our conversation. Where can people go to find out more about you?
Well, my website's scientifichealer.com, your natural oxymoron, scientifichealer.com. And there are contact buttons. There's connections to my radio show, my blog, and my YouTube channel, so you can get a lot. I offer some smaller courses. There's free download. There's a free download, Wake Up Your Brain audio. It's 11 minutes. It does all of the energy hygiene for you in 11 minutes, and it clears up your thinking really quickly. I have people that use it every day because they live in such stressful environments. It really helps them function. There's a few other freebies. I have a free relationship healing. I have a few others. There's just go there and check it out.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of time and space with us today. I really appreciate you coming on the show and just really honor the work that you're doing in the world. I think it's so important, and I'm excited just to be able to support that. And please let us know how we can continue to support that in the future.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate speaking with you and sharing my thoughts with you.
Beautiful, beautiful. And to all of you out there, as always, we appreciate your loyalty. Thank you for listening. Until next time, go out, uncover your superpowers, and change the world. Take care, everyone.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and discover your superpowers today.